right. So, hello everyone. This is Danny, the Kansas Student Health Officer, and today we have a great and special guest. This is Dominica. She's working with the Center Care, and today we're gonna talk about a really important and interesting topic for international students who are, of course, overseas and far away from home. So, hello, Dominica. How are you today?
Very well, thank you, Danny. How are you?
Very well.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you this morning.
No, it's a pleasure. And thank you very much for being part, of course. Always, Dominica is happy to help the students community. So, for some of you guys already know Dominica, is a familiar face, but anyway, for those who don't know her yet, so she's gonna introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Danny. So yeah, as Danny mentioned, I work at Center Care Multicultural Services, and I've been working here for the past 7 years, supporting people from all different backgrounds to make Cairns their home, including international students. My parents originally came to Australia from Poland when I was a baby. And also I did study overseas myself in France for a little while. So I'm quite familiar with some of the challenges that international students face when making a new country their home. And today, Danny has invited me to talk to you guys about the topic of grief and loss. It's not an easy topic to speak about, but one that has affected all of us since COVID-19. So today we will learn a little bit more about grief and loss. We will learn some strategies to deal with it effectively and also to find out where you can get more help if you need it. And before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. And I would also like to thank Duda Baldwin, who is one of the counsellors here at Center Care, who has put together this presentation that I'm going to share.
Yes, thank you very much, Dominica. Yes, we decided to talk about this topic, as you mentioned. It's not that easy, but unfortunately, it's something that can happen. And with this current situation, that we can travel overseas that easy. Sometimes we, unfortunately, we lose someone at home or pass away, and then we don't know how to react, how to manage that emotions, that we cannot be there for our families and even for ourselves to say goodbye to that person that we love. So thank you very much for this space.
You're very welcome. So I'll start my PowerPoint presentation now. Are you happy for me to share that?
Yes, please. Yep. Let's go.
Great. Okay, so we're going to go through our presentation with you now. So as you can see, the world that we once knew has changed almost overnight. COVID-19 entered our lives uninvitedly, and with it brought fear and loss. Whether we are rich or poor, single or coupled, no matter what our skin color or background, the pandemic has become our reality. COVID-19 has brought many losses: the loss of loved ones, the loss of relationships, loss of dreaming and planning, loss of moving freely and connecting with our dear ones. We might also have lost opportunity for income and careers. Weddings have been cancelled. Graduation ceremonies have been postponed. We are not allowed to our classrooms as we used to. And often we can't even attend the funeral of a loved one who has passed away. COVID-19 has brought more losses than we can think about, and it might feel that we are stuck alone with our loss. But the truth is, we are all in this together. Although grief is a universal experience and part of life, the way we grieve is completely unique to each and every one of us. So what is grief? Is it something that we should run away from, hide, and overcome quickly, or is it something else? Grief is a natural response to loss. When we lose our dear ones to death, or perhaps to a breakdown of relationship, we experience loss. Even when we move locations or homes or have lost something valuable, we can experience the pain of loss. Loss entails much more than we are aware of, and it deserves our attention in order to heal. As an example, if we have lost a grandparent, we not only lost the physical connection with that person, we lost future moments, plans, and dreams related to that person. We lost the support of that person, and we lost part of our own identity as a grandchild. There are many losses that accompany one major loss. This is what we call primary loss and secondary loss. Now that we have a fuller picture of how tremendously impactful losses are, we can ask ourselves, is grief important? Is it acceptable? And is it my right to feel this way?
Yes, and it's important for the students to understand that what is grief, and everyone can deal with that differently, but we need to talk about it, and then we need to identify that is something important to try to move on.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Danny. And that is exactly what I was going to say. So absolutely, the answer is yes. And we do have a right to feel grief. And we have all grieved at least once in our lives, and we will continue to experience loss as part of our human existence. So the best thing that we can do is actually give ourselves permission to grieve, and to do this in a way that feels right for us, because there is no universal way to grieve. There is only our way to grieve. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different elements of grief. So you might have heard about the 5 stages of grief, or maybe you know how your own family grieves. There might be some rituals or meanings that are important in your culture. You might have expectations about grief, or you might feel obliged to grieve in a way that is acceptable to those around you. So as I've mentioned, many cultures will have certain rituals or rules that help them to process grief, but in fact, grief is really a personal journey. So there aren't any clear phases, and it's not linear. There is no right or wrong way to process your feelings around loss. And also something that is not helpful is comparing. So what one person may do may be their way of dealing with pain. So they might, for example, post a photo of a loved one on their Facebook page, but you may choose to keep your loss private. So we all have our own unique blend of values and needs. And what we can expect from grief, that it is a roller coaster. So sometimes we will feel up and sometimes we will feel down. Grief is a journey and it's not an easy one, but there is hope. And the hope is your power to take steps to look after yourself and your loved ones. So we can learn to make healthy choices in spite of our pain. And we want you to know that there is a community and there are professional services that can help you, accompany you in moments when the ride is just too hard. So next we will look at some of the manifestations of grief. So grief has an emotional, cognitive, physical, behavioral, and even a spiritual impact on us. If we're not aware of the impact, we may start worrying that something is wrong with us. We might start to feel unwell in our bodies, and we might think, I'm sick or I'm tired. Or we might start doing things impulsively like shopping and then feel guilty about it. We might also notice a change in others, so our friends, our loved ones, and this can prompt us to think that maybe they are also going through some grief. So then we can offer our support. So I will just go through some examples of each of these aspects of grief. So with emotional impact, it can include feelings like sadness, yearning, anger, anxiety, loneliness, guilt, numbness, or even relief. So I guess depending on the relationship that we had with the person that we've lost.
Sorry, what is yearning?
Yearning is like a longing. So it's when you miss someone or miss something.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we have the cognitive impact of grief. So thoughts such as this cannot be happening, preoccupation as well with the loss or the presence of the person or the pet that we have lost. We may have recurring dreams about them as well. There is a physical impact. So as I've mentioned, insomnia, fatigue, change in our appetite, symptoms that really mimic those of the person that has passed away. So if they passed away from a heart attack, we may even have symptoms of a heart attack ourselves. There is a behavioral impact as well. So things like crying, searching for the person, social withdrawal, compulsive behaviors, substance abuse, suicidal ideation or attempts, and sleeping a lot, talking a lot about the loss as well. There is a spiritual impact too. So a lot of people will reflect on their own beliefs about the purpose of life. They may lose faith, they may become angry with God, or they may find faith and they may search for a new meaning throughout the grief. So next, we are going to talk about what we can do to process grief and what can help us to eventually feel better. So we're going to look at two types of behaviors that can either help us with our grief or they can make the journey more painful. So often it seems like we can't deal with our emotions. It gets too hard to handle and we are overwhelmed with sadness, anger, or even guilt. And what usually happens is that we choose a distraction from the pain. So something that helps us to cope. This might be, as I mentioned, excessive shopping. We might start gambling. We might start unhealthy eating habits or drinking every night alone. So we want you to know there's no shame if you choose this option, but it is good to think about, is this helping us to heal from the pain? And no, it doesn't. So what can help us is to look after our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. We really encourage you to reach out for help, even if it is just to talk about the loss and to talk about what might help you to give the grief that the attention that it deserves. So some of these things that we call life enhancing behaviors. So crying, obviously we would be concerned if you're crying constantly day and night, but some crying is good and some crying is normal. Talking about your loss, asking for support, accepting assistance, self-care, exercise, and getting enough sleep. These are all things that we can do to help us deal with grief effectively.
Yes.
Yeah. So there is some new research around grief, and it shows us that grief can be described as an oscillation between two modes of functioning. So one of these modes we call the loss orientation, and the other one we call the restoration orientation. So again, if you can imagine, it's like a roller coaster. So one moment we're up and then we are down. We call this movement oscillation. So during the loss orientation, we are immersed in grief. We focus on the loss and the grief itself. But then throughout the day, we also attend to our daily needs. we may read a book, watch a movie, cook a meal. So during this time, we actually have a break from active grieving. And this is really important for our mental health and well-being. And to make the best use of this up and down movement, we have a choice in how to use our time. So we can have more control and more power in dealing with grief than we might think. So as I've mentioned, it is a unique process, and I would like each of you to think about what is something that you can do for yourself that would help you to honor your grief while also attending to your everyday needs.
Yes, sometimes we have an idea because maybe you have been before in this kind of workshop, so you may know how to do it, and you think that you know, but until you really face that situation, you don't know how you're gonna react.
Yeah.
Even though you know what you should do,
Mm.
sometimes you are so depressed or sad that it's hard to follow that steps. But
Yes,
the first, I guess anyway, the first step is to know what are the options. Yes.
that's right. Or to recognize what you're feeling, as you said, that you
Yes.
are grieving and that you are in that journey and you are in that process. And even helping to name some of those emotions that you're feeling. And yeah, I guess that's when we would really encourage people to seek help, as if they become so overwhelmed with their emotion that they can't even name it, or they can't attend to any of their day-to-day needs because of that overwhelming grief or sadness. So that's when, we would really encourage people to talk, because then, as you said, Danny, people can get help to recognize where they are at in that journey and to identify some of the strategies that might help them.
Yeah, sometimes we pretend to be strong and that we keep going, but then that could be worse. Because
Yeah.
if you don't let you feel this, I guess later it's gonna be worse, and it's important to feel the process.
Yes, yes. So I'll just move on to the next slide, and as we continue to talk about this issue. So we will also be talking about time and closure. So you may have heard some people say things like, you will get over it, or it will get easier with time. So even though when people say this, they have good intentions and try to make us feel better, it often has the opposite effect. And we can end up feeling pressure that we need to let it go and get closure and move on with our lives. So what I would like to share with you today is that one of the most beautiful and healing parts of our grieving process is that we can actually continue our bond with the person or the pet, whatever that we have lost that has been important to us. So we don't have to get a complete closure. We don't have to forget about them and then move on. So we can keep them in our memories and create some simple private rituals that will help us to honor our connection with that person. So for example, we might have a nice photo of them somewhere in our house, and each Sunday we might sit there and have a cup of tea or say a prayer or do whatever that can help you to remember that person. Whatever works for you, find a quiet way to reconnect with them and to gain strength from the love that you shared for each other.
Yeah, that is interesting that you mentioned, because I don't know, I thought that maybe that, I mean, it's good as you mentioned, but like from my point of view, I thought that was like I wasn't over, if I do this and remind, and maybe I get sad again. I thought like, oh, maybe I haven't finished my grief.
Yeah, so I guess that's it, as I've mentioned, it's a journey. So there doesn't need to be an end point, if that makes sense. Like for some people, that's okay. They may feel a sense of closure, and they may feel they don't need to maintain a connection. But if it is someone who was close to you, and if you can do it in a way that helps you to remember those sort of positive memories or positive times that you've shared, it can actually help you in that process, and to feel that you are still connected with them, even though they are no longer with you. Yeah. So yeah, or some people make new meanings. So they might create art, they might create songs, and often people who have experienced a sudden loss, and one that they haven't expected, they may start a charity or a cause that helps them to honor that person and to maintain a connection to them. So that might be something that you might like to try. So again, with the information we've shared today, it's just a part of some of the support that is available. And we just want you to know that you aren't alone in the journey of grief, and we are all grieving together. And yeah, lastly, also remember that we can each play a part in reaching out to those around us who may also be going through grief and loss. So we can ask them how they are doing. And most likely they are feeling the same as you, or going through the same things as you. So that this way we not only receive support, but we can offer it to others as well. And yeah, so in Duda's words, who prepared this presentation, I thought is a really lovely way to end as well, is that acts of kindness are like little pebbles that lead us to joy. So there is a summary as well that I'll go through at the end. So I'll just summarize now. So what can we do if we are separated from our loved ones during COVID-19? Firstly, let them know how you feel. So your family who is still overseas, they won't know what you are going through unless you tell them. And if you feel powerless being so far away, then let them know. Often what they really want is to know how you are feeling. And I know it can be hard. Many people feel like they don't want to burden their families. So again, we are here if people want to talk to someone who isn't their family, but as much as possible, we encourage you to stay in touch with them. And yeah, and they will appreciate and acknowledge as well what you're going through. And if you have lost a loved one, you could let them know that you would still like to be part of the preparations for the funeral. For example, you might prepare something that they might read out, a poem or something that you've written about that person. And it's one way that you can be involved in that process, even though you are far away. And yeah, again, if you don't want, if you're not able to talk to them, or you feel like you don't want to talk to your family and let them know how you're feeling, there are other safe spaces that you can do that. So in Australia, regardless of your background, we have counselling services that are a natural part of our support system. So we just want to encourage you that there is no shame or stigma around seeing a counsellor. And we are going to let you know about a couple of referral pathways now.
Yes, it's important that, because sometimes we feel guilty to, yes, unfortunately, it's nothing that we can do when we lose someone, but we feel guilty about not being there for the ones that are as well dealing with the pain here, you know? So like, and thanks God we are doing well here in Australia, in Cairns. So we feel as well guilty, like, why they have to face that situation, why we are doing well here. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to live with that. And as you say, maybe sometimes we don't want to share with them our feelings because we don't want to worry them more and give an extra pain to them or extra worry to them. So we prefer to don't share those feelings with them. But it's important anyway to share with someone. Maybe not directly with them at the beginning, but that's why this we feel that you're gonna talk about it are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as you mentioned, Danny, there's a lot of feelings involved, and they are complex feelings. And so we just want to, I guess, the main role of having a counsellor is to be able to provide that safe space, as you said, if you don't want to burden your loved ones or your family with what you're going through, and that to normalize that. So as you said, those feelings of guilt or other feelings, that's quite normal, and to be able to normalize that and to find strategies to help you to process that. So some of the options that you can go to for more help. So I have there the appointments that students can book with me through the Student Hub. And that's just an online process, and I'm happy to speak with people over the phone or face to face, so whatever they like.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I just want to comment there. Could be in English, could be in Spanish or in other language, because we can organize a translator if it's the case.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So I speak Spanish myself, and if it's another language, then I'm very happy to get a phone interpreter. And now I would like to introduce Gillian Donkers. So she's the team leader from the Centacare counselling team, and she will let us know about the services available here.
Welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for this. And thanks, Dom, for inviting us to collaborate with you on this presentation. It's important. It's an important topic. And I think really the message is that it is very normal to have a variety of different feelings through your grief process. And with mental health in general, I mean, we all sometimes feel low. We all sometimes feel sad. We feel guilty. So I guess we would encourage you to reach out and get counseling support if you're finding that that's happening all the time. If you're finding that it's difficult to get up in the morning and to do your daily, to live your life, to do the things that you need to do day to day, you might want to reach out to book a counseling appointment, or even it does say there you can go speak to a GP as well. Our doctors and general practitioners are really qualified to be able to provide support with your mental well-being. So that's another option that you can utilize if you're finding that yeah, your feelings are just that you can't manage them on your own, kind of thing. And counseling can really help with building some strategies and just get you feeling connected. So yeah. I guess the other ones that Dom has put up there for you is there are a lot of telephone support numbers that you can call. A lot of them are 24/7 as well, so you can call at any time, and they are a free service that you can use as well. So there's a couple up there, Beyond Blue and Lifeline, that you can utilize, but there are a lot of other numbers as well. So if you wanted different numbers, you can always reach out to us. Yeah. And Dom is a great connector as well. So if you felt connected with the Student Hub, Dom can always connect you with counseling services or provide more referral pathways as needed. Yeah. So.
Thank you very much. Yes, sometimes as international students, we must have health insurance, and sometimes depends of your health insurance as well is included. These services, counselor or psychologist, if it's necessary. So we have to have these meetings, appointments with Dominica through Centacare. So it could be the first step, and then have a look as well with health insurance. Always is a way that we can talk about these topics. But if you don't know, here is the information.
Yeah, and we're always happy to sit with people and based on their own sort of financial situation, work out a way to support them. So we don't want anyone to feel alone or unsupported because they can't afford to pay for a psychologist or a counsellor. So yeah, please don't hesitate to talk to me, and then I can always communicate as well with Gillian from the Centacare counselling team if it looks like there may be a need for some ongoing support.
Yeah, and thank you, Dom, for mentioning that, because we don't want money or financial your
Barriers,
financials,
yeah,
to be a
an
barrier
issue.
to you accessing the service. So,
Yes, it's important because sometimes as international students, we are afraid to use these things because it's going to be so expensive, so better no. But it's other ways, it's different alternatives, and it's important to speak out, and then we can find the right tool or source. It depends on the case.
Great.
All
Thank you so
right.
much, Danny.
Thank you very much, ladies.
No worries.
It's amazing and was really important. We have some particular cases that students share with us. That's why we thought it's important to talk about this topic. Not everyone is open to talk about this, but of course, it has effect in your life. And I personally was as well. I lose some family members at home. So I thought like I feel of course connected with this topic, and I would like to share with other students how important it is to talk about it. So I just want to remind the students that we have the services through this student hub. It's gonna be for free with Dominica. First we just can have a chat, but of course it's good to talk with a professional in that area. So it's just an invitation. Don't be ashamed, and it's important to talk about your feelings. Sometimes for some people it's not easy to talk about this with some friends because they prefer to keep it private, and it's okay. When you talk with for example, with Dominican or use these tools, everything is confidential. So again, you are welcome to use these resources. So thank you very much, ladies, for your time and for this great information.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you so much, Danny. And yeah, we just wish all the students all the best in their journeys. And yeah, we're happy to be here. So please feel free to reach out if you need any help.
Thank you. So I'm gonna for how the students can book an appointment with Dominica. So here you can see the different steps. You need to register online, and there you just need to put this specific information, personal information. You can select if you want a face-to-face appointment with Dominica or a phone call. There you have the option to select. And just remind, please book at least 24 hours before the appointment. That way Dominica has enough time to organize herself as well. And that's it. Thank you very much. And
Thank
see
you,
you next
Danny.
time. Thank you.
Hasta luego.